Hello. Well, here we go again. I think of a Shakespearean quote. I think it's from Macbeth. It goes something like, "I've stepped so deep in blood, I may as well keep going." Well, when I broached the subject of decentralist action and inaction, I did that with some trepidation, but I'm into it now, so I figure I might as well keep going. I created a word in my mind, dact and inact. Dact and enact. Dact, decentralist action, dact. And decentralist inaction, dinact. So I'm dacting, or at least I'm telling you how you can dact and how you can dinact. And put together, I'm trying to explain things that you can do in order to dact and dinact. I'm creating my own verb. I'll take credit for that. All right, now, going on with this, to understand where I'm coming from, I mean, it might be a start to think about the romanticism. I taught about that the first year. Of my videos, those seem to be some videos that more people watch than others, when I gave a little history of the Romanticism and what those poets were doing. Romanticism, so you could go back, it's too, you can find it. Romanticism was a part of it was a reaction against the Industrial Revolution and what the Industrial Revolution was beginning to do to the world. And I teach through that. Well, that might help understand why. Well, see, at that time, women would have themselves painted with their hair blowing and long hair blowing in the wind and barefoot in the grass. A lot of that stuff wasn't very practical at all, but and the men in there, see, I make a connection. They think of themselves, the ones that I know, to the extent that I know, as simple people. That's how they would explain themselves. They're just simple people. A delightful woman that I know described herself as that. Is she sort of, if you want? Well, I don't want to get onto that too much, but Romanticism, it might help. I think there was a new burst of Romanticism in the 1960s. Into the 70s, and it just got quelched by the 1980s. Don't glorify speed and destruction. Well, think of the movies people watch. Well, yeah, that's one example. All those explosions, the louder, the bigger explosions, the bigger bangs, the better. Think of what you're doing when you're glorifying. Well, if you're watching a movie like that, you're going through the effort, you're glorifying it. But I also think of things like NASCAR, Formula One racing. Look at that event, those events in terms of Wedge's paradigm, in terms of kilocalories as currency. And the winners are the guys that have been able to run through the most fuel the fastest. And all those people that go drive their big cars and all that to go to witness that, what are they doing? They're glorifying consumption, degradation of energy. I mean, if you look, see, I'm operating under a different paradigm. But if you're watching movies about such things, with the explosions, and I don't so much even, I was tempted to put violence there, but that's not what I'm so much talking about. It's the speed and the destruction. When I watch a movie, or looking for a movie to watch if I'm going to, if I see it's in the city, I usually just immediately, I don't want to watch it because I just don't want to go there. But anyway, I'm not saying you all need to be like me, but I'm trying to show you how I am affected by my paradigm. Think, if you drive to a gym, to get your exercise, to get physically fit, what do? You get in a car and drive 5 miles or 10 miles or whatever. Cat. That's a different cat. You do your exercise and then you get back in the car and you drive back. I mean, again, if you look at that in terms of kilocalories, 1 gallon of gasoline, I think, I use this figure, equals about 250 man-hours. Think. Borrow things and loan things happily and proudly. Think of that as a very good thing to do, to borrow something. Not to be shamed about it because you don't own your own. No, proud because you're willing to ask to borrow and be so happy to loan things tools I think of. I said about that other times. Don't go out and buy something. Borrow it. Loan it. A whole library. Just don't look at paper advertising. If you get a newspaper, like we get the local newspaper, and there's a whole stack of stuff. It's just paper advertising. I don't even look at it. I just set it aside. When I read the paper, I don't even look at the advertising. Don't buy something this is a hard one. This could be impossible for some of you. Don't buy something to honor a day. In other words, it's my wife's birthday, or our anniversary. So what should I do as a good person? Buy her something. Or go out to a restaurant and buy a served meal. For example, birthdays. I didn't even put wedding anniversaries, but Valentine's Day. You're being conned into that. There's other ways to honor that day besides spending money and buying things. Better ways, probably. Write a poem. Well, or try to. Mother's Day. My mother hated Mother's Day. I think of her so often. She affected me so much. She said, she would probably get mad if I had done something for Mother's Day for her, because she saw through this. Saw that was Father's Day, Secretary's Day. Think what's going on here. You're being convinced that you need to buy things. Why? And here's the hardest one. For some of you, you probably simply could not do that. Don't honor Christmas by buying things. This is going to be completely impossible for probably most people watching. Don't do that. Well, not for Mennonites and Amishmen. I don't think. I don't know. I don't believe that that's what they would do. Or Halloween costumes. Don't do that. Just don't buy that stuff. And I'm not speaking exactly as a religion. I don't think you should think of it. I do get impassioned. You can probably see that. But this isn't a religion. But it is a morality. At school, when I was in the public school, my fellow teachers, my colleagues, they had a hard time with me on this. Because, all the time, everyone's collecting money, putting it together to buy something for some teacher. And I didn't want to be disagreeable, but if it came to me, I would say right away, please don't. And I wouldn't, I really asked them to not do that kind of stuff. And they were puzzled. They would say, why, for a while. And eventually they settled on the idea that, or somebody said, is it your religion? And I kind of hid behind that eventually. I said, well, yes, sort of. I said, I'm a closet Mennonite. Because I just couldn't have the time, and I didn't expect that people would understand if I tried to explain that I operate in a changed universe. Using Burke's phrase, my universe changed back in the early 70s, and it didn't change back. So that could be hard, but boy, once again, can you imagine what that would do to the world economy if people just said, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're gonna honor Christmas by going to church. All right, back to sort of, don't paint wood. I often have said, don't paint wood. Why would you ever? The only reason I can think of to paint wood is so that you can paint it again. Because once you've painted wood, it's very hard to unpaint wood. So you paint it again. Why? I guess there's some reason to paint metal. Probably, but if you're going to paint wood, or paint something, paint it white. That way you don't get involved in that whole issue of, well, which color looks best, and because then you're going into that jungle of fashion, and I don't like that color anymore, I'm going to use it. Just go with white. I once said my architectural strategy is wood and white. Whenever possible, if it's wood, I leave it as wood. If it's not that, then I go with white, wood and white. Heat small spaces. Be ready for that idea that if you have got yourself a huge house and your heating bill is killing you, just heat the kitchen. Just heat the kitchen and the bathroom. You'll feel like you're suffering tremendously, I suppose. But if you can remember earlier in one of those books I showed you, back when there was a single big tile oven and people stayed near it, that was a different way of thinking about heating. It changed really with electric fans, with the electric motor, where the heat is run up the outside walls and then forced to go down the inside of the house. Well, a house wants to do exactly the opposite. The heat wants to rise, and it hits the cold walls, it wants to go down. Like my heating system here, there's no fans, and our house is perfectly comfortable because I've done it that way. Well, then anyway, but at the very least, think of small spaces. And this, again, this would probably, some people will die, I suppose. Well, certainly, don't air condition. Don't use air conditioning. If it's too hot, well, pour water over your clothes. And think about the fact that you are living in a space and a place that is inappropriate. So that, again, that's probably impossible. But from where I'm coming from, when I realized that the energy demands on the grid soared and could actually break down the grid on an extremely hot summer day, I'm thinking about, well, energy, you use that to heat, don't you? I mean, I could see if it get a bitter cold day, you're using a lot of kilocalories fuel to to stay warm, but to stay cool. All right. Well, I'm not done with this. I'm probably going to go on with one more day, but I do want to get done with this before I go off to Europe. But a lot of this stuff should come together, because why I'm going to Europe is to study how people conduct and enact, how they. Well, that's not. But other ways of doing things. So I think I'm going to come back to this subject at least one more time in the next day or two. Well, if you've listened, I mean, I'm sure I've sounded impassioned, but I'm showing you what I really think. Bye for now.